Hi everyone. How we doing tonight? It's a Friday night. I don't usually stream on a Friday night, but you got to do what you got to do. Also, I decided for music tonight, I'm just going to play a little bit of my own music in the background. This is Silver Cave. So if you hear any of this, it's not going to be super duper loud. There we go. Okay, so I know for a fact that I own this music, so that's why I'm gonna play it a little bit. It's a lot different. It's more metal, but that's why I'm gonna put it a little lower. There we go. Okay, so we are back here with a ranking. I'm really excited about this. Tonight we're starting with number 129. But as is customary at this point, I'm not going to go through the honorable mentions, but I am going to give a little bit of a recap of what we have so far. So right here, we have number 151, we have Wobbuffet. At 150, we have Tauros. At 149, we have Corviknight. At 148, we have Sylveon. At 147, Munchlax. At 146, Nidoqueen. At 145, Regigigas. At 144, Toxtricity. At 143, Muck. At 142, Vileplume. At 141, Talonflame. At 140, Samurott. At 139, we have Infernape. At 138, we have Diglett. At 137, we have Braviary. At 136, we have Chikorita. At 135, we have Poliwrath. At 134, we have Ampharos. 133, we have Donphan, I think vastly underrated Pokemon. At 132, we have Flygon. At 131, we have Aggron. And at 130, we have Noivern. All right. So, we're going to get started into our next 10. Because we've really been kind of going at these 10 at a time. Even now, I mean, from the very beginning of the list, we're obviously getting into some extremely iconic Pokemon. But as we continue to get farther, we are going to get into, like, the really undeniable ones. And I've kind of said, like, there's a lot of room for arguing as we go. But as we get closer to the top, it's going to be a bit more indisputable. The positioning will be where we can really argue, and I'm excited about that. So, sound off, Let me know what you think of our ranking. And without further ado, we're going to get started with our next entry. We have number 129, Persian. This one was interesting because Meowth is so iconic, and I figured Meowth was so iconic that I had to include Persian. And one of the biggest reasons I wanted to include Persian is its connection to Giovanni, because in the anime, Jesse and James, the members of Team Rocket that we know and love, they have their talking Meowth. But the boss, Giovanni, has his calm and cool Persian in the background. He's always petting it. And that is a constant presence throughout the original anime, which is super duper iconic and a big deal for Persian. Really, being connected to Meowth at all is a really big deal because, I don't think it's much of a spoiler to say that Meowth will be on this list a little bit further down the line. Now, so I have Rocket Boss / Gym Leader Giovanni team member. Persian appears on Giovanni's team in multiple iterations throughout Pokemon Yellow. It doesn't appear in Red and Blue, as far as I can think of. I'm almost positive it does not. But much like a lot of the things in Pokemon Yellow, Persian gets an inclusion to tie it to the anime. So it gets a really big bump in its video game representation because of the anime representation. And Giovanni has Persian on his team, I believe, for 3 battles. In the Celadon department store, in Sylph Company, and in his final gym leader fight in Pokemon Yellow. So that's another huge feather in Persian's cap. It gets a regional form, which I love. Well, I love that it gets a regional form. Its regional form is actually extremely polarizing. People really, really hate the big fat face. But much like Rattata and Raticate, Pokemon in the Alola region gain the dark type because they kind of get like fat and gluttonous, and Persian's big round face is supposed to signify, I believe, kind of like wealth and greed. And I think there's like a breed of cat that rich people have that have like a big round face like that. I'm pretty sure that's the inspiration for Alolan Persian here. And it kind of rebrands as more of a special attacker. I like using it in the game. I don't really like the design of Alolan Persian, but I love the character Nanu in these Sun and Moon games, and his ace Pokemon in his battle is that Alolan Persian, and I love to see that. I remember it using its Z-move. Nanu is definitely my favorite Island Kahuna in those games, so I have a very soft spot for Alolan Persian for that reason. But what was I going to say? Let's see. Okay, so if you are... I'm just listening to my own music in the background. Silver Cave Band is what this is. So if you hear anything and you're like, oh, that sounds kind of cool, that's what it is. But Persian's got a really nice presence in the TCG as well. I have told you all for a while that this list is just a little bit of a front to just talk about my TCG obsession, just from a collecting standpoint. Again, I've never played the game. But there are some new Persian cards. There was a Giovanni card, or like a Boss's Orders, I think, where it's like Persian looking out onto the night, like the night skyline, presumably in Saffron City up in the Sylph Company, but I don't have that here. I have its original card in Jungle, which, oh, come on. That is gorgeous, full of character, kind of like sinister, looking really, not sinister, kind of like mischievous and cool. Those colors in the background, oh my gosh, that takes me right back to my childhood. But not only that, something I've been thinking about when it comes to just Pokemon and Pokemon stuff is that a lot of people my age really love it for the nostalgia. But if you look at this image, it is just beautiful in its own right. Those colors, they are personally nostalgic for me, but they actually evoke great emotion no matter if you grew up playing with these cards or not. I don't really know how to explain it better than that, but there's just something beautifully whimsical. And I know I'm going on a little bit too long about the background of an uncommon card, but I just love the colors on this card. I love this Persian. Let's see. So now, here I have Dark Persian. There's an iconic hit points error. Yes, I actually included the one with the hit point error. On this Dark Persian promo, there is, if you look in the top right corner, it's supposed to say what its hit points are. But this Dark Persian obviously does not have that hit point value. That's a pretty rare and iconic error for this card. And that makes this card, with that error, quite valuable. So I wanted to shout that out. There's another Dark Persian card. Let's look at a couple. I believe it's Persian is Enshrouded Fable. That Persian I was talking about. Yes! Persian looking over Saffron City, I like to imagine. Very, very cool. It's like Giovanni and Team Rocket just took over the Sylph Company. My goodness, $50 card. That's crazy. It's probably a lot cheaper in Japanese. There's a hint for you, folks. If you like the artwork on a lot of these cards, they're very often way cheaper in Japanese. And still really super cool. But there is actually another Dark Persian card that was printed in Team Rocket right there and Legendary Collection. As you can see in the Team Rocket set, it was not hollow. But in the Legendary Collection set, it was hollow. Which is cool that you get a little difference like that. Sorry, I'm just looking at prices. There you go. Okay. Talked about how it was the Island Kahuna Nanu's ace Pokemon, connected to Meowth. I think Persian's got a great case to be on this list. Mostly for that connection to Giovanni. And that connection to Giovanni has given it extended life, as we're seeing in Shrouded Fable. And I don't know if it's in Glory of Team Rocket or Destined Rivals, the new set. But Persian, wonderful, wonderful Pokemon. Really sleek, cool design. I think underrated. I think it's a really cool Pokemon. Very simple, but very cool. All right, so number 129 is Persian. Excuse me. All right. Let's go. Oh, okay. I just got some breaking news on my Cleveland Cavaliers that Darius Garland, DeAndre Hunter, and Evan Mobley are all playing in Game 3 for all you sports fans. That's really big because my Cavs are really blowing it right now and they need to win tonight. But I am streaming instead because I'm too nervous to watch. Okay. So, let's move on. At number 128, we have Mudkip. And I was really excited to get to Mudkip because if you remember, Swampert was in our honorable mention. And you might think that Swampert deserves a mention on this list. However, I decided to include Mudkip instead because to me, I find the first form to be the most iconic Pokemon. We experienced this a little bit with Chikorita earlier in the list, and Mudkip kind of absorbs that resume of Swampert in an honorary way. So at 128, we have Mudkip. It's a starter, times 2. It gets that, gets to be a starter in both Gen 3 and the Gen 6 remakes. It is a Generation 3 mascot, and I have here best starter for Gen 3. For those of you following the Smith Plays Pokemon Legacy series, I like to watch some of his YouTube stuff, and he has spoken a lot about how Mudkip is way the best Pokemon to use in the Hoenn region, and he is not wrong, because Swampert getting that ground type, that Stab Earthquake, that is really hard to combat, especially considering there's not a lot of grass moves that you will encounter in the game to counter Swampert. So Mudkip ends up being the best Pokemon for that game. I added like a level of cultural relevance because I know like the Mudkips meme is a big thing. Mudkip, I heard you like. Brock has one, right? Or he did. Yeah, because he gets a Marshtomp, I'm pretty positive. So that's another thing. Connection to Brock in the anime there. Yeah, I just feel like when people think of this evolution line, they just by a little bit think of Mudkip more than they would think of Swampert. I have here connected to Swampert as a plus. And it eventually gets that Mega Evolution. I think I mentioned this with Swampert as well. Yeah, this big burly guy. So this Pokemon eventually gets a Mega Evolution, which is big. Right here, featured in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. I have only partially played the first Mystery Dungeon game, and I know those came out for the Game Boy Advance, you know, really the time of Generation 3. So those Generation 3 starters are going to be featured there. But I wanted to shout it out here in its resume highlights. In addition to its adorably cute design, it's kind of like it's so cool because it's I think it's like the Mudfish Pokemon. It's kind of like an axolotl, kind of like a mud skipper. It's just like a vague lizard fish-ish thing, but it works so well. And people are crazy about Mudkip for good reason. But this, I think, is our first instance of a Gold Star card. And for those of you that don't know, the Gold Star cards were cards that were printed around the Generation 3 era, and they are extremely rare because that was the lowest point of the Pokemon TCG in terms of popularity, or thereabouts. So a lot of the sets from this era are not very highly printed at all. And these Gold Star cards are extremely rare cards within those extremely rare sets. So they are iconic for that reason. Very rare, very sought after. And here we have this beautiful Mudkip, and that was a huge feather in its cap, and gave it inclusion on our list. Our days is playing. Let's see here. So yeah, thinking about Mudkip again. Think about it absorbing the resume of Swampert. It is featured in new Pokemon Snap as is Swampert, but really being a mascot for Generation 3. It having cultural relevance, the iconic design, and of course that Gold Star card is why I decided to include Mudkip and not Swampert on our list. All right, so now let's get into number 127 of the 151 greatest Pokemon of all time. And that Pokemon is Kingdra. At number 127, we have Kingdra. Kingdra was the new evolution for the Horsea and Seadra line introduced in Generation 2. I think it really expands beautifully on that line, gives it the dragon type, which is super, super cool. And Kingdra's big claim to fame are these two right here at the top, being the ace Pokemon of Claire in the Generation 2 games, and being the ace Pokemon of Juan in the Generation 3 games, specifically Emerald. And it has an absolutely iconic troll strategy because his Kingdra, Juan's that is, knows Double Team and also uses Rest and a Chesto Berry, the Resto Chesto, they like to say. So those two Kingdras are so prevalent for casual players of those games, and that really boosts Kingdra's profile a lot. Also featured on the Elite Four team of Drake in the Generation 3 games. I think only in Emerald, though. I am pretty sure Drake does not have a Kingdra in the original Ruby and Sapphire, just in Emerald. And then here's another mention of that Elite Four from the Indigo Disc in the Scarlet and Violet DLC. Drayton uses a Kingdra on his team. And, fun fact about Drayton's Kingdra, I could not beat him for the longest time because that Kingdra was always setting up rain, and I had never fought an Archaludon before, and I did not know that Archaludon's signature move, I don't even remember what it's called at this point, but I did not realize that its signature move could skip its charge turn when it was raining. So it was insanely powerful attack that could basically one-shot all my Pokemon, but then I realized that, I gotta take out this freaking Kingdra so it can't set up rain. So again, another super iconic Kingdra strategy. Very bulky Pokemon. Super, super great. And Claire's is iconic in its own right, using that Hyper Beam, using that Surf. But have some great TCG mentions as well. Here we have its holographic card from Neo Genesis. Just features some classic Sugimori art with the hollow background. Some of these OG Pokemon cards really just used the regular kind of key art, but just kind of slap it on the card. And that might seem lazy, but it also seems timeless and beautiful at the same time. But another super rare kind of card were these crystal type cards. And these were introduced in the e-reader sets Expedition Aquapolis and Skyridge. Those were the last sets that Wizards of the Coast ever printed. I don't want to download it. That's weird. Hold on, I'll pull it up here. Kingdra Aquapolis. Here it is. Oh, I mean, it has a has a holo rare in Aquapolis, which is rare in its own right. That's super cool. These sets were kind of famous for having kind of like weird art in a good way, kind of depicting Pokemon in a way you might not expect them to. But really, I wanted to talk about these because kind of like Gold Stars a little bit, these crystal type Pokemon were very rare cards in very rare sets. So this Aquapolis Kingdra, even though it's just kind of got like the bad CG here, is much more valuable than that other Holo Kingdra that we just saw, even though that Holo Kingdra might be probably a little better looking, honestly. But you put all that together, really you have some key NPC battles that feature Kingdra. That, it being an extension of a classic evolutionary line, that is really what kind of vaults Kingdra onto this list. Because like I said, I just thought of two hugely iconic struggles right off the bat. And we talk about that with Miltank a little bit in our honorable mention section. Also, just another disclaimer. I keep meaning to say this at the top of each ranking stream, but obviously if you've not played all of the Pokemon games, you're going to encounter spoilers here, because I'm going to really kind of lay out the Pokemon's resume as we go through our ranking. So just throwing that disclaimer out there once again. Sorry I forgot to say it earlier, but at number 127, we have Kingdra. Real happy about that. Okay, so let's move on to number 128. We have Bidoof. Bidoof is so worthy of a spot on this list. Bidoof is one of the goofy mascots for the Pokemon series. It has that iconic goofy design, like I like to say. It's also a mascot of Generation 4 in general. I talked about Munchlax being a mascot Pokemon. Bidoof, definitely even more so. It's great. It is a Pokemon that you're going to run into a ton in Generation 4. It's funny because some of these Pokemon from Generation 4, I kind of talk about Luxray, Staraptor, they kind of become iconic a little bit accidentally because there's just not that many options, especially in the early going of the Generation 4 games, which is funny. But I don't know if there is a more iconic HM Pokemon, specifically because Bidoof evolves into Bibarel, which is a water type. So it can learn all of those water HMs as well as those pesky rock smashes and strengths, you know. So Bidoof, in addition to being an iconic goofy Pokemon, might be the HM Pokemon, if we're being honest. Please feel free to dispute me in the comments if you find a Pokemon to be a more iconic HM Pokemon, but for me, for my money, it's probably Bidoof. Oh yeah, and I talk about that with Bibarel. It was the first regional rodent to gain an elemental type, because in Gen 1 you have that Rattata Raticate, just pure normal, Sentret Furret in Gen 2, Zigzagoon Linoon in Gen 3, but then Bidoof, when it evolves, it really becomes the beaver it was meant to be and gains that water type to go along with the normal type. And it's featured in New Pokemon Snap, which is super great, kind of talking about it being by the water and kind of building a dam in that game. Oh, and I know this isn't Bidoof, but there's a really nice Bibarel card, I believe in Crown Zenith, where you kind of get to see it. Yeah, right there. It's $1? That's $1 card. Everybody go buy this card. For $1? That's so delightful. Oh my gosh, I love that. Also, thank you. Shout out to TCG Player. I'm not sponsored, but that would be great. So again, I mean, Bidoof is not going to have the resume in terms of like key fights in the games. I'm sure it's pretty well featured in the anime. I'm not familiar with the Gen 4 anime, but those of you who are could probably speak to that. Again, it is a great mascot Pokemon. Really represented a jump up for regional rodent Pokemon. Kind of like Talonflame did, because that was the first regional bird to gain that elemental type. But yeah, Bidoof. I would defend this position on Bidoof to the moon. So at number 126, we have Bidoof. Let's see. Let's move on to number 125. I love this because I don't exactly remember the order when I move on to the next one. So at number 125 in the 151 greatest Pokemon of all time, we have Aegislash. Yes! Aegislash. It's so funny because I was just thinking about this Pokemon today, how I actually do kind of prefer its pre-evolutions design-wise. But I do mention its iconic design. It's a Gen 6 mascot. Really, really cool Pokemon. Really evocative of like medieval Europe. And it, of course, is a leader in the Kalos region, which is based on France. It is a ghost steel type, which is super duper awesome. Now, it is the ace of Vikstrom in the Elite Four, which is super duper awesome. Really indicative of him, because he's like a knight in armor, which is kind of weird, but also awesome. And one of the things that really put it over the top is that it is on Leon's champion team in Sword and Shield. And I find his Aegislash to be pretty tough in that champion battle. It's very interesting because I find the Sword and Shield games to be pretty easy generally, but once you get to that Leon fight, it really jumps up in difficulty. But correct me if I'm wrong, folks. No, we had Chandelure earlier. That was an honorable mention. But another big feather in Aegislash's cap is that it's playable in Pokémon Tournament. And in Pokémon Tournament, they include some playable fighters that I wouldn't think about, really. And Aegislash is one of them. And we're going to get into more Pokemon that are featured in Pokémon Tournament in a really cool way. But I love that it's featured in Pokémon Tournament. It's got that signature gimmick where it goes from attack mode to defense mode. Right here, you see it kind of in defense mode with that shield in front of it, which is really great. But let me see. Oops, I spelled that wrong. But yes, here it is in its attack mode where it's holding the shield, and that sword portion is really, prominent and ready to attack. And you kind of saw it there at the bottom, but it has this beautiful illustration rare. Look at this thing. It looks so regal and cool. Love that art style on it. I love this card. But up here you can see Doublade here in the corner. And I was just thinking today how famously in my mind, not famously to anybody else, in my first playthrough of X and Y, I did not evolve my Doublade because I thought Doublade was cooler than Aegislash. I'm like, tell me how two swords evolves down back into one. That was kind of my weird thinking. But I believe you need a Duskstone to evolve it, so I just didn't evolve it. And I just kept the Doublade the whole time. It increased the difficulty a little bit, which is nice because those games are easy. Sorry, I'm just vibing on my own music. Oh, great lore. Oh my gosh, forgive me. I forget the lore on Aegislash. I mean, it's a ghost steel Pokemon, so I think the lore involves, like, the spirit of a fallen knight imbuing its sword with his soul, which is super cool. I love that. A lot of ghost Pokemon get really cool, spooky, ghostly lore. And right here, we have Cyrano's Scarf. Cyrano is a character that is introduced in the Indigo Disc DLC in Scarlet and Violet. And here he is. He's really cool. He's like the director of the Indigo, Blueberry Academy, the Indigo Disc. And if you look at his scarf, there on the bottom left, it kind of has that like swirly bit, that swirly blue bit with the lines. And if you look here, ooh, that's not as... You can't really see it as much. Let me go back. You can see that there on Aegislash. On Aegislash, it's purple, but you have the swirly purple bit with the lines. But if I go back to Cyrano here, you can really see the connection there and how his scarf looks like an Aegislash's kind of like scarf arm things, which is super awesome. We love it. We love those little tie-ins, those tiny little things you might miss. So you put all those things together. Iconic design. Some really great Elite Four and Champion features. And Pokémon Tournament. All those things together make Aegislash a very worthy member of this list. I have it at 125 in the 151 greatest Pokemon of all time. All right. So, let's move on to number 124. And here we have Jirachi. There were a lot of mythical Pokemon on this list that I just wasn't quite sure how to place, because a lot of players didn't really have the option to get a lot of these mythical Pokemon, or their methods of attaining them were pretty difficult or rare. So you're not likely to have too many play-through memories in the core games with these Pokemon, but some of them I think are iconic in their own right, and Jirachi, I believe, is one of them. Now, I talk about its iconic rarity. GameCube transfer. There was a Jirachi in... Oh, I'm kind of blanking on it. Was it Pokemon Ranch? Pokemon Box? Pokemon Channel? I think it was Pokemon Channel. And it was... And you could transfer this Jirachi from that GameCube game. It was like a Pokemon storage type of game. And you can transfer that Jirachi into your Gen 3, any Gen 3 game. And I remember its sprite being super cool. Let me see. Jirachi Gen 3 sprite. Where are you? Yes, this one right here. I love this Jirachi sprite. Oh, I love that it moved. I think this is it's really evocative. It's like a motion kind of power pose. Love this sprite for Jirachi. But let's see here. Let's go back. It's a mythical Pokemon, which is a huge deal. Very rare for that reason, obviously. You can get it in distribution events, like Mystery Gift now. But yeah, back in the day, there were not very many methods of attaining it, which kind of gave it a level of mystique that Mythicals just don't quite have now. It has its own movie, Jirachi Wishmaker. And I remember watching this. I believe I watched Jirachi Wishmaker on TV, and it featured kind of like a weird, kind of, what's the word? Distorted, huge version of Groudon, and that's kind of what our heroes were fighting at the end. But Jirachi was alongside our heroes trying to fight that Groudon and trying to save the day. You have your own movie, that's a big deal. Here I say, the sickest signature move name ever, Doom Desire. That is so cool. It's not a very good move. It is like a steel type future sight, really. Not very good, but it's so cool. And I remember the battle animation for that was really, really awesome, because I have always loved Jirachi. I love its design. And when my cousin and I transferred in our Jirachi from his GameCube game, I remember using Doom Desire many a time and seeing that sick battle animation. It has great lore, great typing. It's a Psychic and Steel type, which is awesome, shared by Solgaleo in the Sun and Moon games. Really, really good typing. And that lore, just literally Jirachi Wishmaker. It's like it's a wishing star. Look at it. Its head is a little star. Comes from outer space. Super cool. Comes in like a meteorite. Really, really awesome. There are some cool Jirachi cards as well. I'm only linked this one. Oh, yes, this one's beautiful. Just look at that. That is really, really great. I love kind of like the simple 2D art on this. Again, really, really like when Pokemon card artists can kind of do their own thing and really kind of put their own signature stamp on a Pokemon. Love this from EX Deoxys, and EX Deoxys is one of those Gen 3 sets that I was talking about that is very, very rare. Let's see, as far as other Jirachi cards, there is a Jirachi Amazing Rare, which, oops, that's... Or, what set was that in? I think that was Vivid Voltage. Yeah, it is an Amazing Rare. This was kind of like a short-lived rarity that they had in the in this era of the TCG, where it had kind of like the swirly rainbow background. On the actual card, it looks a lot more sparkly and cool. But I think I remember selling one of mine for like 15 or 20 bucks, and for reference, this one is $2.38. So they kind of tanked in that way. I don't know why though. I think they're cool. I think they just weren't that rare at the end of the day. But put all that together, really the big thing, that iconic rarity of being a mythical Pokemon before they could easily be brought in via the internet, really gives Jirachi an edge. And as far as the mythical Pokemon go, you'll find on our list that that's really going to be a key feather in their cap. So at 124, we have Jirachi. Love to see it here. And again, this could be an instance of one of my personal biases coming in, because I love Jirachi personally. And, maybe you would have Jirachi at number 200, but I have it at 124. Love Jirachi. So let's move on to number 123. I'm excited to see. What do we have? Poliwhirl! Oh, yes! I was curious about this because if you recall, if we go back here, at 135 we had Poliwrath. Now you might think, Trent, do we really deserve a spot for both Poliwrath and Poliwhirl? Well, allow me to explain. Poliwrath has that TCG base set holo. That alone, huge, huge, huge deal. And it's an Ace of Chuck's team. Huge, huge, huge deal. But let's get back to where we were. Number 123, Poliwhirl. Poliwhirl also has a card in the original TCG base set. Right here. Looks super great, super classic. It's obviously connected to that Poliwrath card that we see. But it was a mascot of Pokemania. Poliwhirl was a huge deal right when Pokemon came out. And that is evidence here by the Time magazine cover. This image right here is a huge image of Pokemania when it originally came out. And Poliwhirl is right there, front and center. Literally, you have Pikachu, Mewtwo, Charizard, Blastoise, Psyduck. Heavy hitters, but Poliwhirl is there in the center. It was a huge, huge deal when it came out, and it is iconic and archetypal design. I don't even know if that's a word, but I'm choosing to make it a word. It is a favorite Pokemon of Satoshi Tajiri, the creator of Pokemon. And I talked about this a little bit. Poliwhirl is based on the young tadpoles that he would see as a young boy, because their guts kind of look like a little spiral on their stomach. So that gave him the idea for Poliwhirl, Poliwag, and Poliwrath. Again, speaking of being a mascot for Pokemania, it got its own Burger King Gold card. If you recall, there was, I believe there was a Togepi, there was a Mewtwo, there was a Charizard, probably a Pikachu, if memory serves. But Poliwhirl, again, you might not think it now, but Poliwhirl is one of those Pokemon that got a lot of that huge attention right at the beginning. And Poliwhirl hasn't gotten as much attention since, but it got so much attention at the beginning, featured in the manga as well, that it deserves a spot on this list. It is the face of the phenomenon when it first occurred. And it gets that split evolution in Gen 2. We talked about Politoed already. And I do talk about how it's not that featured in more, modern games or modern things, but it does get a really nice illustration rare in Pokemon 151. I mean, look at that. That is so gorgeous. Look at the colors. Look at the reflection. This is probably a mascot card for that set as well. So Poliwhirl is kind of like one of the big unlikely mascots of the series. So I really thought that it deserved a spot on this list. And yeah, that's about what I got for it. Speaking about it now, again, its resume might seem comparatively thin to some of the other things that we've encountered, some of the other Pokemon that we've encountered, but you really can't overstate the impact of Pokemania when it first came out. Because I was there, it was huge. And, you know, like I said, even if it's not the most popular Pokemon now, it being a true mascot of that era, I think earns it a spot on our list of 151 greatest Pokemon of all time. All right, so let's move on to 124 now that I have made my case for Poliwhirl. 122, excuse me. So, at number 122, we have Kangaskhan. Yes! Kangaskhan is a great Pokemon. Look at that iconic kaiju design. We talk about that with Nidoqueen earlier in our list. This kind of design really is evocative of early Pokemon. It's kind of the design, what the design philosophy of Pokemon was built on early on, or Pokemon like Kangaskhan. But look no further on Kangaskhan than its iconic Mega Evolution. It was a VGC powerhouse when it was first introduced. It's kind of inherently stupid, but we love it. Its little baby Joey just comes out of its pouch and they both fight you. That's what makes it so mega, and we love it for it. Not only does it get a Mega Evolution, it is definitely one of the more iconic ones, for better or for worse. We have this Jungle Hollow here. I guess I'll talk about TCG early. Oh my gosh, I love that holofoil pattern on the early cards. This is in the Jungle set, second set in English, or I think the second set in general, because I think it went base set Jungle then Fossil, I'm pretty positive. So Kangaskhan, iconic classic holo, would love to see it. We also have this trophy card of Kangaskhan. If it's going to load, yes. So look at this bad boy. This was, I believe, I don't really know. I mean, it's Japanese, obviously. It was a trophy card. Very rare, very valuable. I don't know what this card is worth now, but I think the last time I checked a couple years ago, or several years ago, this card sold for like $100,000. It might have been in a PSA 10, I'm not sure. But yeah, this was like a $100,000 card. And that's crazy to find a card that valuable. Just very rare. Love those low-key, super rare Japanese cards. But kind of getting back into the game of it all, it was an original Safari Zone encounter, which I put a lot of stock in because those were very whimsical to me. When you find that Kangaskhan, when you find that Scyther, when you find that Pinsir, it was rare, it was really hard to catch, and that adds a lot of mystique to Kangaskhan to me. I love it. It is on one of Giovanni's teams in the original games. It is on his Celadon City team. Yes. This is my cover of the Final Battle theme from Gold, Silver, Crystal. I called it red. Anyway. So it's on Giovanni's team in Celadon City, in the Celadon City fight in the Gen 1 and 3 games. It actually did get a signature move. I don't really think about it that much, but Dizzy Punch was a signature move for Kangaskhan until Generation 3, which is super duper cool. At least I'm pretty sure until Generation 3. No, I think Elekid got it, so that might be misinformation. Sorry about that. But it was originally a signature move of Kangaskhan. I already talked about that iconic classic kaiju design. We have the anime episode, The Kangaskhan Kid, which is super great. It was about a wild boy that lived in the Safari Zone and was raised by Kangaskhan. If you're an OG like me, you know that that episode is near and dear to your heart. Loved that episode growing up. That was on one of my tapes because back in the day we had VHS tapes. And if we wanted to get a VHS of the Pokemon anime, they would come in for each VHS tape, you would get 3 episodes. And I remember the Kangaskhan Kid was one of the episodes on one of my VHS tapes growing up. I gotta find where those are. I'm sure my mom has them. Anyway, so we have this theory subject, Cubone, ? So the theory in question is that we know for a fact that the skull on Cubone's head is the skull of its dead mother. That is confirmed. But what people theorize is that the little Joey sitting here in Kangaskhan is what becomes Cubone. They do have kind of like a similar shape, a similar design. So they think that Mama Kangaskhan here died, and little baby Kangaskhan crawls out of the pouch, takes the skull, and wears it. So that is a really interesting theory in the Pokemon community that adds another cool level of mystique to Kangaskhan. It is a sneaky, iconic Pokemon, I think. I feel like people don't think about Kangaskhan enough, but I think it is well-deserved to have a spot on this list. Okay, so you put all that together. It's great. It's got... it has battle relevance, it has TCG relevance, anime, NPC team relevance. Kangaskhan's got a little bit of everything. And like I said, maybe one of the more underrated Pokemon on this list. I feel like I've rated it appropriately, as I do professionally. We're going to have to find a different playlist here, kiddos. Let me put this on to kind of get us through to the end. All right. So, great. Oh no, I spoiled it, but here he is, Sudowoodo! He's number 121. Okay, but just want to wrap up Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan's great. Number 121. We have Sudowoodo, baby! I love this Pokemon. Definitely one of my favorites of all time. I think it's got definitely a case. You might not think so, but I'm gonna lay it down here, so don't worry. So at number 121, we have Sudowoodo. It is a featured Pokemon of Brock in the anime. I believe he gets a Sudowoodo in the Generation 3 arc, if I'm not mistaken. And I know that is a key Pokemon of Brock. It's a rock-type Pokemon, so obviously it's going to be there. But the conversation for Sudowoodo being on the list really begins with its iconic static encounter in Generation 2. It also has a static encounter in Generation 3, as we learned in the Emerald Battle Frontier. There is a static Sudowoodo, but really we're thinking about that Sudowoodo in Johto. north of Goldenrod City before you get to Ekrutik. You got to get that squirt bottle. You got to spray it. Figure out that tree's not a tree. It's actually a rock. So great. It's a really cool and interesting successor to Snorlax in that way. It's a very different Pokemon. The design philosophy on this is so great. Love Sudowoodo. Okay, so again, iconic lore and typing. I talked a little bit about it already, but it is a Pokemon that looks like a tree, but is actually a rock-type Pokemon. It's kind of based on the idea of petrified wood, or petrified trees. And it is a tree that hates water. Usually trees love water, but this tree hates it. And it's gotten a lot of mileage out of that. It has the feature in Sun and Moon as well, being a roadblock for the character. I don't remember exactly what it's blocking off in Sun and Moon, but I remember there's a route where there's kind of like a line of Sudowoodo that won't move, and you really have to, and it forces you north on the map. And Sudowoodo has a lot of personality in the modern games as well. We have encountered them in Legends Arceus and the Coronet Highlands, and they just kind of like, boop, boop, boop. I love the way they move, love the way they wiggle. Sudowoodo has so much character. Just look at that friendly little face. It's kind of like, it's a weird kind of derpy Pokemon, but I love it. I love it. But, it's not just kind of like an overworld Pokemon. It does have some key NPC battles as well. It is the ace Pokemon of Brassius in the Scarlet and Violet games. Really kind of a face of the Terastal gimmick that all of the gym leaders use. Because for those of you that don't know, the gym leaders in that game, they all use as their ace a Pokemon that is not their signature type, but they terastalize it to be their signature type. And Brassius is a grass-type gym leader, and he elects to use the seemingly grass-type Pokemon Sudowoodo that then eventually terastalizes into that type we always thought that it would be when it was created. So I think that's a really cool nod to its original inception as well. Love its feature in Scarlet and Violet. But then, Sudowoodo is actually a team member of Bertha in the Generation 4 Elite Four. For those of you that followed our playthrough of Platinum, Bertha does not have a Sudowoodo, but in the original Diamond Pearl and in the remakes, Sudowoodo is featured on her team because the Pokedex is far more limited. We talked about that with Flint a lot. But Sudowoodo is a beneficiary of that as well, which we love. And then finally, for Sudowoodo, it obtained a baby form. It obtained a baby form in the form of Bonsly, which is an iconic Pokemon in its own right. Because it is another one of those kind of like bridge Pokemon. It was featured in XD Gale of Darkness before it was officially revealed in Generation 4. So Bonsly is a great baby Pokemon for Sudowoodo. I love that design. Really fits nicely, I think. And by giving it an extra form, that really tells us that Game Freak and the creators have a vision for this Pokemon and see it as one of the key Pokemon in their canon. And I absolutely love Sudowoodo. I'm so happy to see it on this list at number 121. So, we'll probably be sticking to our groove of going 10 at a time. It really works out nicely. I can yap all day, seemingly, about these Pokemon. Sudowoodo is probably my favorite we've encountered so far. But if I'm not mistaken, I did take a peek before our stream, and at number 120, you're going to get one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. Smeargle. Number 120, we have Smeargle. I love this Pokemon, as a matter of fact. I have a Smeargle here on my shelf. I love him. You all know my Lugia, of course. But here we have Smeargle. Beautiful. So cute. I'll set him next to me right now. I'll put him back on my shelf later. But Smeargle is, I think, one of the iconic gimmick Pokemon. Kind of talked about that with Wobbuffet a little bit, but I would think Smeargle would be more so. It can learn pretty much any move because of its sketch move. And the way it works is super unique, super weird. It's very weak, but it has become an iconic VGC Pokemon because of all the moves that it can learn. Famously learning Dark Void and other moves like Spore to put their opponents to sleep. And I thought that was so cool for Smeargle. I loved that it could learn any move, and I didn't even realize that its stats were terrible because I thought that was so cool. Okay, so another great thing about Smeargle is that it does not only have a special area in Johto, it has a special area in Hoenn as well, in the form of Artisan Cave. Wow, that's really back-to-back. So Sudowoodo has the Battle Frontier encounter. This Artisan Cave is a special area in Hoenn where you can catch Smeargle, and it's kind of like below, it is like the cave below the Battle Frontier is where Smeargle resides. But more specifically in Johto, I want to talk a little bit about where you find Smeargle in Johto, because there is a specific patch of grass in the Ruins of Alph that you can only access by going through certain doors in Union Cave. You need Surf and Strength to get there, I think. But it's this little patch of grass where you can catch Natu, and you can also catch Smeargle. And I always thought that little patch of grass was so cool and so mysterious and kind of off the beaten path and something that you would never think to go to. And it really added to the mystique of Smeargle. And then just the fact that it can learn any move. I can teach this Pokemon Flamethrower, Psychic, Earthquake, whatever I wanted. I love Smeargle. Gosh, I love Smeargle. If you can't tell, I like Smeargle. But so outside of that, outside of kind of its gimmick, outside of its really specific vibes, it does have a holo in Neo Discovery, which I love. Once again, this holo is so beautiful and evocative for me. If you can't really tell, there's a smiley face that it's drawing. You can tell a lot more on the non-holo rare. But I think this art has so much character. Gosh, I love it. I love this artwork. I love the little pyramid symbol in the corner for the Neo Discovery set. But gosh, one of my favorite cards of all time, that Smeargle card. I already talked about being an iconic VGC Pokemon, how it could learn like any move. It is a team member for Trial Captain Ilima in the Sun and Moon games. It is his ace in the early battle that you have with him. And Ilima is a normal type trainer. It's really cool to see Smeargle featured on a normal type team. And it's a really cool ace for like an early battle in the game, because like we've talked about a little bit, Smeargle is a very weak Pokemon. And it is, I mean, it's definitely the, iconic artist mascot of the series. Because now you have like Grafaiai, which is kind of like another painter Pokemon, but nothing like Smeargle, baby. Does Grafaiai have a little beret? Come on now. Smeargle's the true painter of the group. It's so cute. It's so fun. I cannot get enough of this Pokemon. One of my favorites of all time. You put all that together, I think Smeargle is well deserved of a spot on this list. And for me, I have it at number 120. Smeargle, the 120th greatest Pokemon of all time. But folks, that's probably going to do it for us tonight for this edition of the ranking. I can't wait to get into the double digits. We are getting close. I I guess I'll just kind of talk a little bit, just because I'm vibing, about kind of like what's next for the channel. Right now, we're really kind of oscillating between this and playing Arceus. Arceus is definitely like one of the longer games that we've played. So there's still a lot more episodes of Arceus to be had. I'm really excited about it. There's still so much great stuff to show you. I feel like every Arceus stream I just keep mining gems, man. I'm so happy to be playing that game with you all and sharing my joy on it. But after that, after we get through Arceus, after we get through this list, I know what our next game is going to be, and it's going to be something that you might not expect. It won't be something as off the beaten path as Yu-Gi-Oh! Worldwide Edition Stairway to the Destined Duel. I don't think anybody could see that coming. I don't know how many YouTube comments I got, like, what game is this? When I would share clips. But I know what our next game is going to be. You might not expect it, but I think a lot of you will be fans of it. I think there will be a lot of overlap, which makes me happy. Hopefully, we'll see. I hope you guys like it, but we're probably a ways off from that. I am close to being on summer break for my job, which should, in theory, make streaming a little more often, a little easier, which I'm happy about. But with that, folks, can't wait for what we have in store here on Silver Cave Gaming. And I appreciate you all being here with me tonight. I appreciate you all watching after the fact. Please comment and argue with me in the comments. I would love to have spirited, respectful arguments with you. And with that, I hope you all have a great night. I hope you all have a great weekend. It's Friday night, baby. Let's do it. All right. Peace, kids.